Hello everyone! In today's video we show you how fast and easy you can digitalize a production with connected Peakboard boxes. In the example we have a production line with 4 workstations. These 4 workstations must be passed through before a part is produced. How you can keep the overview you see now.
Let's start with a visualization for your workstation. This is supposed to receive information relevant to the current task, such as, for example, the product number, completed parts, and the target value. Besides this, it should offer the worker the option to report and document problems using an and-in interface. To do that, we will first set up the relevant text boxes. Now, we're going to set up a list labeled Current State to ensure that notifications actually reach the relevant shift leader. This list will later show us a status code, a status text, and an amount indicating the number of completed parts. Here, it's important to set each column to the correct number or text format so that we can later work with them without running into problems. To ensure that the shift leader can access the list from a different Peakboard box using the Peakboard data source, it's important that we enable the API interface for the list here. Once we've set up this list using our demo dataset, we can continue creating our visualization. We want to display the number of parts that have already been processed using a progress bar that slowly fills up over time. To do that, we're going to use drag and drop to place the bar on the screen as desired. After that, we're going to adjust the settings under Properties. In case that went a bit too fast for you, you can find thorough explanations of all of our controls in the Peakboard Designer on our help website. You can find a link for that in the description below. After placing the progress bar, we're going to set up the button that the worker can use after every successful process part to adjust the current is value. This way, we can keep track of the live progress of that particular workstation and, if needed, take action in case target values aren't being achieved. After we finish setting up the button's design, we need to create a script that will increase the current value by 1 each time that it's clicked. For that, we need to open the tapped event of the button and look for the field containing the current value in the current state table. We can do this directly using the tree in the script editor. After that, we set the value at +1, which completes our script. Once that's done, we can turn to our and-in interface. Our worker will be able to use this to report problems at his or her workstation and to document them. Here, we're also going to create a button and set up a tapped event for it. In this one, we're going to use the status code and the status text. To do that, we'll use the tree again to look for the relevant fields on the list. Then, we set these equal to the desired value. For the button All Good, the code should be 0 and the text should be All Good. For the other buttons, which we'll create using copy and paste, we just have to adjust the code and the text. To make sure that the worker can see what status their workstation currently has, we want to color code the progress bar. Here, we'll differentiate between simple notifications, which we'll represent with orange, and standstills, which we'll mark with red. We can make this happen using conditional formatting. We can find these under the properties of the respective control. We can get directly into the mask with the click of a button, where we can now set the rules that we need. First, we'll start with a simple notification to indicate that the machine needs maintenance. This has the status code 1, which is why we can now go and check on the status list whether that status is actually 1. If that's the case, we can use a then condition to change a property of the control as desired. Here, we select the color of the progress bar and then set it to yellow when the condition is met. Using duplicate, we can duplicate that rule and modify it so that it will change the color of the progress bar to red for the other status code. To do that, we'll select the greater than or equal to function and then set 2 as the condition. Now the progress bar will turn yellow when the status code is 1 and red when it's 2 or greater. The baseline color of the bar will be green and is shown whenever none of the other conditions are being met. That is, when the status code is 0. With that, we're done with our visualization for a single workstation. Now we can continue with our visualization for the shift leader. This will provide an overview of individual workstations on a production line, as well as other useful information regarding the current task. Let's start with the task information. To do that, we'll set up an area in the right part of your screen where we will later display the name of the customer, the initial value, the target value, and the delta. Besides that, we'll show the current time, the time at which the task should be completed, and the time that we have remaining to complete the task. This way, we can get all the important information for any task at a glance. Next, we'll represent the production line graphically. We can do this by using graphical elements from the designer to represent an input, an output, and the production line itself. To populate the production line with information that will be sourced from the workers operating the individual workstations, we first need to set up a way to access the data of those particular workers. For this, we're going to use the new Peakboard data source that we mentioned earlier. To set that up, we go to Data and use Add Data Source to insert a new Peakboard data source. This is composed of a number of different elements. In the upper area, we have a text box that allows us to name the data source and to set up the reload interval. We will set it to 5 seconds so that we'll be notified quickly of any important updates, such as, for example, any unanticipated downtime at a workstation. Next, we need to select our Peakboard box on which the visualization that we've created and for which the API interface is enabled is currently active. Once we've selected it, we can choose what data type we're going to be working with. Here we can choose between individual variables and lists that can be read using the Peakboard data source. Since we created a list, we can go ahead and select List, and then select our list Current Status. After we then click on Load Data, we will have access to our list, so we can display the live data from that workstation in our visualization. Now, we're going to repeat this same process again for each of the other workstations on the production line. Now, to display the data, we're going to first create a data flow by combining all of the individual workstations. We can do this by right-clicking on a Peakboard data source and then selecting Manipulate Data Flow. In this data flow, we can now use the step Union to add the other Peakboard data sources. This way, we get a list with all of the different workstations, as well as their current status. Now, we're also going to add a column to help us identify whichever workstation we're looking at. We'll name the column Station, and it'll contain the name of each respective workstation. To do this, we're going to create a script where we'll use return to determine that we want to return a value. Then we put station in quotes in order to clarify that we're dealing with a string. We then use ... to show that something should still be added onto the string. This is also referred to as concatenating. Now, using index, we are going to add the number value. Since we always start at 0 with scripts, we need to add a 1 to the value here. Once we've saved this step, we can see that the rows now display the individual stations with their respective numbers. Next, we're going to add the information regarding the current task. The current value in this case is, of course, sourced from the last workstation. For this tutorial, the target value comes from a static list. In real usage, we would instead add an interface to the ERP system to automatically display the current data for us. In order to calculate the delta, we'll first set a variable into which we can enter this value. Then, we create a refreshed script for the last workstation. This will be executed every time that the data for this workstation is refreshed. So, every time that the theoretical current value could have been modified. In this script, we're going to define that the delta variable should lie between the target value and the current value. With that, we can go ahead and connect the delta variable to the text box. Next, we'll also add an indicator for the current time. Here, we select the hour-minute format under Format. The time at which the task should be completed will, once again, be drawn from our list to represent the ERP system. For the time left, we're just going to enter a static value for the purpose of our tutorial because of time constraints. If you'd like to learn about how to calculate the differences between times, you can find a tutorial on how to do so in the description below. Last, we want to visualize the individual workstations. To do that, we're going to create a tile control. We connect this with our data flow, which has all of the data that we have for the individual workstations collected in one place. Then we create our template. Here, we use the column that we created to display the name of the workstation. We also want to show the current value and the current status text. Besides this, we'll create a traffic light control that will color differently depending on the current status code, just as we did with our progress bars earlier. To do that, we'll connect this control with a matching data source. Then, we'll adjust the rules again the same way that we did before, so that everything greater than 1 equals red, 1 equals yellow, and 0 equals green. Now that we've created this individual tile, we can just copy and paste to create more tiles for the other workstations, and then adjust the column in the table as needed. We then just have to place the tiles on the screen. With that, we're done with our second visualization for the shift leader's overview. When we now load both visualizations onto our Peakboard boxes, we can see how the value adjusts itself as the worker clicks on Done, and how the traffic light on the shift leader's overview changes color when an error is reported. Also, the status text is immediately displayed so that the shift leader knows what to do right away. That's it for our video today. If you liked it, we would love it if you'd leave us a thumbs up. To make sure that you don't miss any new videos from Peakboard, we also want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel. We will be uploading new videos on technical topics, our business, and our next steps more actively in the future. If you have any questions about any of the individual functions that we introduced in the video, please simply leave us a comment or contact us directly. For that, you'll find our email address in the description below.